So Claude Code just introduced a new feature directly within the desktop application called Claude Code Previews. And it's a really interesting feature because previously you would have to toggle between your web app directly through Chrome, feed the bug directly into Claude Code sessions and have it debug. But right now they just made that whole process a lot easier. So let's get right into it. So if you check out their Twitter, they actually just announced this on their handle, Claude. And the way that they position this is that it's a tool that lives directly within the Claude desktop application. So in the old world, let's just call it, you would have to go and install Claude Code with the Chrome browser, so that way your app would preview directly within the browser, and then you would need to toggle back and forth between the terminal and your browser and point out different bugs. Well, now they just made that process a lot easier. And so what this tool does is that it basically puts up your app directly within the Claude desktop, and it goes through as a user and it finds bugs directly within the actual flow from a user perspective, and it automatically addresses them directly within the application. So I've been playing around with this for the last couple hours, and it's actually really interesting because it just makes the whole process a lot easier to debug. If you have a front end web application, you have a portal, or anything that has a front interface, this just made this a whole lot easier and more autonomous. So the way that you would want to set this up, and it's a little bit tricky to start, but not only do they have the previews themselves, but they also have ways for you to trigger code reviews as well. Now, code reviews are things that you want to have a separate gate before you deploy any code to production. You should have an independent review to ensure that whatever code that AI generated is done based according to software development standards. The problem with AI is that it sometimes rushes through building the code. It doesn't check for all these different components to make sure that they're all working correctly. So verifying the code, having it independently done through a review process, that's generally a best practice. What Claude did directly is they actually pulled the review process directly within Claude itself, within the code review piece of it, which makes this so much easier now. I haven't had a chance to play with this specific feature just yet, but it's interesting because if you use tools like Reptile or even Code Rabbit is another example. These are independent tools that you utilize to have your AI code reviewed by a separate AI reviewer. It's kind of funny. You have one AI review the other AI, and I think what's happening is now is that all these different applications that used to rely on these other code reviewers, well, now what Claude is saying is that, or at least what Anthropic's saying, is that they are actually pulling that directly within the process itself. So that spells a lot of doom for some of these tools out there, I think, because now you no longer need to have an independent reviewer and pay for a separate subscription. You now have it all within one application, one tool, which makes this so much easier because the process to do code reviews is really a bottleneck in the development lifecycle. And then the third feature that they announced as well is the PR monitoring. PRs are really just pull requests. What that means is anytime you deploy code to your repo, let's say you use GitHub, what happens is you have a PR, and a PR is really just a checkpoint to say, okay, of all the features that you're going to be deploying, have you gone through the right review process? So based on Greptile code review, what you can utilize are these tools to make sure that your code has gone through the necessary checks. And you can see here that my Greptile is right now actively working on identifying this one. But if you have PRs, you can have Claude itself do its own monitoring in the background while you work on other things. So this looks really interesting. This tool itself is a little tricky to get set up. So let me show you exactly how you do that. And just to kind of show you guys an example here, I've been building out a portal that's meant to mimic Netflix, but for weddings. And this has been a problem that I've been trying to solve for the last couple months, because what happens is I have one bug here, another bug there. I have to review it. I have to put it in my Claude Code session here, and it's a lot of copy pasting and back and forth friction in the process. And it just doesn't give me comfort that this app is production ready. I'm always finding issues. I'm always finding bugs, and it just becomes a pain in the ass to try to get this deployed in production. So now I've been testing this and seeing that what Claude is doing is it's going directly through the entire life cycle from a user perspective, pretending to download pictures. It's making sure it can see all the pictures. It's running through and creating different case scenarios for it to validate. And what's interesting is that as it's going through and going through the experience of the different features that I have built within the portal. It's going through and making sure that it's all working well from a user perspective. So you can see here that the journey itself is taking directly within the app, and it's taking pictures as it goes, and it's understanding what it's seeing and the expectation of the behavior within the application. It's really interesting to see how this is all panning out, because it's going through and making sure that this is all working well. So definitely play around with it. What I'm going to show you now is that how to actually turn this feature on. It's a little tricky at the beginning because you actually have to work within a folder on your local desktop as opposed to on the cloud. So what you want to do is first you want to start off with a new session, and if you don't already have this work tree set up here, you want to definitely make sure you pull in your GitHub repo or a local folder. Generally what happens is if you want to operate directly on the cloud so that way you can work on the go, you can directly wire Claude Desktop directly within a repository, and a repository is in GitHub. You can point it to that so that way it can operate independently from your computer. It can operate fully on the cloud. But if you want to enable the preview feature, it's a little tricky because I realize that you don't see it when you have this toggled on default mode. You need to move to local. And so that's the key thing there. So first is make sure that when you open a new Claude session on desktop, go to local, and then you'll be able to select a folder. And now that folder is where you can choose either the home root, which I don't recommend, because if you have a mono repo like I have, you'll have multiple applications within one repo, and it's better off if you point it to the actual application folder. So you may have a subfolder within the parent that you want to point it to. That's the first thing you're going to do is first go to local and then point it to the folder of the application. So those two things. Third is, before you even get to this step, if you go to Claude on the top left-hand side of your computer, go to Claude and then Settings. You do need to turn this feature on. It's a little tricky to find it first, but once you're in the Settings view, click on Claude Code here, and you're going to see here that they have a couple different toggles under the desktop settings. You'll have worktree location, branch prefix. These are the two new ones here, preview and persist preview sessions. Preview is what you want to make sure is toggled on. And that basically says Claude can start dev servers, which basically just means runs a local server on your computer. It can open a live preview and then verify its own code changes with screenshots and snapshots and DOM inspection. I don't really know what DOM inspection is, but screenshots and snapshots are pretty much just grabbing screen prints of the app. So make sure you turn that feature on. And then the second is persist preview sessions. So this is more around like saving cookies and local storage and your login sessions. This one, I don't think it hurts to keep it on as well. It just helps you, persist. If you wanted to come back to the application later, you just have all the cookies and settings saved. So basically, be sure to turn those two things on, and then when you go back to new session, I'll leave a prompt down in the description below of this video. There is a very distinct way you'll want to prompt your session. Where's my portal here? Here we go. So you can see here that as it's finding issues, it's going to go ahead and fix them as it goes along here, and then you can commit the changes. But before we do that, let me just show you guys the prompt on what you want to give it. You definitely want to say start the dev server for X application and preview the app in the embedded browser. You want to add that directly to the prompt because it's a little weird to get it to show the previews. It doesn't automatically do it. You need to put it in your prompt. And then the rest of this is more around, depending on what your use case is. I'm acting like a QA tester. I want Claude to go through every single page and walk through each of the major user flows as if you're a real wedding client. This is my example. I then listed out all the different pages. I have a home page, I have a gallery page, I have a video theater page, and then I just had it make sure that for each page, take a screenshot, inspect the DOM, check for console errors, test the elements, and verify mobile responsiveness. If you find any bugs, fix them and re-verify. And then afterwards, after you fix everything, create a PR with a clear summary of everything you found and fixed. So I'll leave this prompt in the description below. I'm obviously going to take out what's applicable to me in my application. You'll want to create one for your own application. But once it goes through the full process here, it's going to take screen grabs. It's going to go make sure that everything is working correctly. What's interesting too is if you click on the preview on the right-hand side here, you can actually have it spin up previews of other applications you may have in your repo. So I have multiple in here. The client portal is one, and then you're going to see here that it's going to spin it up, and it's also going to check for errors here within the console too. So console errors are basically like the back end of how your portal works. Every website has a console, but sometimes if you don't see the error directly within the user interface, you'll see that in the console. Those are basically just logs that are on the back end. So you want to see everything here working correctly. And obviously we have a couple errors here, 404. So these are the types of things that the tool is probably going to find and fix here. So the console is really where you find errors that are hidden in the back end. I have another application here that I'm going to spin up shortly. I'll see if I can get to fixing those issues as well. Once you're all done, obviously let this run. This took me about probably 20, 30 minutes. I just stepped away, it came back, and it is ready with the changes. It actually ended up creating an additional 1,000 lines of code and took out, well, net 1,000. So it added 2,000, removed 900. So net 1,100 changes here. And you can see here that it went through and created all of the additional checks here within each app and each feature. So it looks like a lot of this was around the progress. Let's see. We want to check out our routes. Okay, so it found a couple different modules here that needed fixing, the research. Okay, so this all so far looks good. But the idea here is that you want to run the review code. Let's see. So we have the review fail feature here. Let's see if we can do commit changes. Now I actually have greptile directly within my app. Here, let's get down to the bottom here. Commit all changes so we can make a PR. Okay, so once it's ready, it's going to commit changes, and then I'll see if we can find the auto merge feature, auto review feature here. Let's see if that shows up. Again, this is a research preview state of the application. It's not fully prime time yet, so it might be a little buggy here. So let's see. Another thing while this is running, guys, is I want to show you that there is a way for it to bypass permissions, which I just found out as well. All right, so this is saying to run. Yeah, that's all right. There's also a feature called bypass permissions, which is something you want to consider. So you see how now every single time it's asking me, hey, is it okay if I change this? Is it okay if I run that? That's obviously very annoying. This adds a lot of friction to the process. You want to be able to step away. Obviously use this with caution. This is something that, only once you get comfortable with using the tools, you want to enable once you kind of trust Claude with your setup here, with your application here. So instead of you clicking allow once or allow always for the session, you can just toggle this feature, go to bypass permissions. It's going to say, are you sure? Yes, let's go ahead and do that. It's going to put this nice little yellow caution border around your whole session here. And what that basically means is it's not going to ask you anymore. It's just going to go through and just approve itself. And it's going to use its own logic and reasoning as to why to approve. So that's also another neat feature. So when you're running this here, consider turning that on. I think it's a good way for you to just get more work done. And then, while this is running, I'll go and toggle off and I'll go into a different application here, a different Claude session here, and work on other things in the meantime. So all from a workflow point of view, you can definitely get more done by setting it and then coming back, turning on that bypass permissions feature, so that way you can get more done. All right. So definitely try it out. Let me know what you guys think. I'll go ahead and paste the prompt in the bottom of the description below. And this is a new channel, so leave a comment. If you guys need help, get stuck anywhere, let me know. A lot of these tools are definitely advancing a lot quicker. So this was one that was announced yesterday. Seems like there's new features every single week. But leave a like, comment, and subscribe, I guess. And then I'll see you in the next one. All right. See you later.